Hi, it's Eleanor and today I'm going to be doing the Reading Habits book tag. No one tagged me in this, but this seemed like a really interesting book tag to do, so I thought, why not, just have fun with it. Question 1. Do you have a certain place at home where you read? I like to do the majority of my reading either in my armchair in my room or in my bed. But sometimes I will read, for example, in the living room or maybe in our armchairs in the kitchen. But ultimately, as long as I'm somewhere comfortable, I'll be happy to read there. Question 2. Bookmark or piece of paper? I'd have to say bookmark. I've got a weird collection of bookmarks, some of which are pieces of paper, because I end up tending to lose all my bookmarks, so I feel like there's no point buying proper bookmarks if I'm just gonna lose them. So it kind of depends what's close to hand. If I'm by my collection of bookmarks, I'll take a bookmark. If I'm reading in a receipt or any scrap of paper is close to hand, I'll use that. It's just really whatever's easiest. Although sometimes I do, if nothing's to hand, I will dog-eared them, which I think is an unpopular opinion, so I'm sorry, please don't hate me. Question 3. Can you just stop reading, or do you have to reach a specific chapter or point in the story? I prefer to keep on pushing until I've reached the end of the chapter, but if, for example, I'm reading on a bus and it's my stop, or I'm really tired and I just want to go to sleep, I won't mind too much if I just finish at the end of a paragraph rather than at a really obvious place to stop. It's just kind of how I feel at that point in reading. Question 4. Do you eat or drink whilst reading? Sometimes I have a cup of tea with me, especially kind of at the beginning of my reading. I get some tea, maybe some biscuits and settle down. But like I said before, if I'm out and about reading on a train or a bus or whatnot, I don't really tend to drink or eat anything. So yeah, it's usually just tea. Question 5. Multitasking. Music or TV while reading? I really don't like listening to TV whilst I'm reading. I find it's way too distracting. Sometimes I listen to music, especially if it's instrumental, but most of the time it's just me in my room, it's silent. Question 6. One book at a time or several at once? I often read several on the go, especially because, for example, if I have a heavy classics, I usually read that in the morning on my commute, because I find I can't really read them when I'm about to go to bed, and so in the morning on my way there and then in the afternoon on my way back, I'm kind of have a fixed period of time where I've like forced myself to read a few pages, and it just gets me through them. And then in the evening, I have usually a lighter book which I can read before I go to bed, and sometimes I might have poetry, a book of poetry going, or some plays going, short stories going, just kind of different types of books that are all completely different genres. Question 7. Reading at home or reading everywhere? Like I said before, I can read everywhere. I love reading on public transport. It gives me something to do and it just means that I have to focus. I love reading in cafes. Recently I've been going up to London a lot, going to all these cafes there and just having just reading. Like recently I was up in London and I had to meet my friend, but I was quite a bit early. And so I just found a cafe and sat and read this book for a few hours with like a cup of tea, and it was just really nice. And just reading somewhere different is quite stimulating and helps. Just being in a different environment is really nice. Question 8. Reading out loud or silently in your head? The majority of the time I do read silently in my head. It's just quicker that way. But if, for example, if I'm reading poetry, a lot of the time poetry is best taken in and understood when it's read aloud. So sometimes if I'm reading a book of poems, just walk into my room and see me like muttering under my breath, but that's just because, you know, that's my way of taking in poems and I find that works best for me. 9. Do you ever read ahead or skip pages? Not normally, no, but sometimes if I'm flicking through to see how far I've got left, I might accidentally, you know, see a few words or something, or maybe if I'm debating whether to finish this book, I'll flip forward to see if anything gets better, but usually I just try and, you know, front to back, straight through reading it. Number 10. Breaking the spines or keeping the books like new? The majority of my books are from charity shops, so they're not exactly brand new books, so I don't really mind about how battered or whether the spine's broken or not, because I feel like it shows that the book has been loved and that it's been read multiple times, because when I look at my bookshelf I can see which books I've read multiple times, which books I've really loved, which books I haven't got around to reading yet, and all these sorts of things, and it just marks how well I or other people, if they're secondhand or if I lend them out to friends, have loved these books. Books are there to be shared and to be loved, and if you have in my opinion, if you have a bookshelf full of pristine books, like as long as they're not really old and need to be kept in brilliant condition, then you're not really showing that you love them. Which kind of segues into the next question. Number 11, do you write in books? Yes, I do in some of them. So obviously for books I've studied in class, I've written in them. There was a non-fiction which I read recently, which I've scribbled all over, kind of thoughts on what they're saying, like things which I found really interesting specifically, things which they make minor points on, which I was like, oh, I need to look into this further if I'm ever bored. And these sorts of things, but also just underlining favourite quotes, underlining things which stand out for you, and then when you reread it, you know, you go through and you think, oh, this is what stood out to me when I first read it, and oh yeah, this is a brilliant line which I completely forgot, and when you flip through it there's like scores all over it, and I just love that because, like I said before, you know, it shows that a book is loved. So that's my reading habits book tag. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you want to do the tag, please feel free, and I will see you soon. Goodbye.